Good afternoon, everyone. It is Sunday, January the 31st, 2021. It is currently 3:14 p.m. Central Time, and I am back here at Victory Baptist Church in the middle of nowhere, Texas. I hope you're having a great Sunday. I think this morning we did pretty good with everything that we talked about. I think all of the studies that we did this morning were beneficial. I wasn't completely happy. with the study in Romans chapter 8. I've thought about it for a little bit this afternoon, and I'm not completely happy with it, but I hope it was beneficial. If you were listening, if you did not hear it, well, you can go listen to it. That's under the VBC podcast. I think our study in the Niagara Creed was very beneficial because it put together a lot of things that we had been talking about and really drove in the biblical worldview and how to understand it and how to perceive it. And so I think that was beneficial. I thought the Greek word study was interesting. I think I could have expanded it a little more, but I thought that was pretty good today. So I hope that everything that we studied this morning was beneficial, and you've listened to it. And if you didn't listen to it, hopefully you will go back and do so, and hopefully you'll find something beneficial enough that you can share it with other people as well. But it is Sunday afternoon, and I thought we would start this Sunday afternoon, that the first live broadcast this Sunday afternoon, I thought we would start off by looking at something that I think is very important. Now, everyone listening to me, you're very aware of the COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic that is obviously, it's a pandemic. It's a global pandemic. I know it's a little redundant. A global pandemic and impacting people around the world. We know all the numbers. Over a million people have died globally. We're over 400,000 people have died here in the United States of America. It's just all the impact on the world from an economic standpoint. All the divisions and fighting and arguing that it's caused. It's been absolutely crazy to witness, to watch, to live through, to try to figure out how to respond. It's obviously just been tragic seeing the loss of life. It's been a crazy situation to just try to respond to, even knowing how to respond to it and what to say and when to say it, and knowing that if you say this, people are going to say this, and just so much to figure out. But what I want to do this afternoon is I want to talk about another pandemic. Another pandemic that is probably impacting you in ways that maybe you haven't even realized yet. It may be impacting your family. It may be impacting your church. It may be impacting your relationship with other people. And I want us to really spend some time thinking about this, and hopefully this will be convicting, challenging, and beneficial. And I hope you will listen to everything I have to say. Now, the way I want to approach this is I have a news article here, and I want to use this news article to then get into kind of this, what I'm calling a pandemic, this thing that I believe is a massive problem. Yes, COVID is a massive problem, but we have another pandemic that we have to be just as concerned with. Now, I will say, if you're listening to me live this Sunday afternoon, and you're listening to me obviously via the Spreaker app, feel free to chat. Just right there on the Spreaker app, look at the little chat icon, tap on that, and you can ask questions or give me your thoughts, your feedback, your perspective, and I'll be more than happy to take a look at it. So are you ready? The article that I have in front of me was published on January the 29th at 2021. All right, January the 29th, 2021. Here is the headline. Another epidemic. Okay, now listen, another epidemic. Family gaps widen over sex, tech, Trump, and COVID. So they use the term epidemic. I'm going to use the word pandemic because I believe this is a global situation. But they say another epidemic. Family gaps widen. So this gap between family members is widening. And it seems that it's widening over things like sex, tech, Trump, and COVID. Let's see what they have to say here. And let's see if you can kind of identify what they call it an epidemic, what I believe is this pandemic that we need to spend some time with. All right, let's work our way through this carefully. Earlier this month, in a piece for The Atlantic, Joshua Coleman described an epidemic that's not COVID, but that's also afflicting America. All right. So they took their article, was based off an article that was written for The Atlantic. And that was published earlier this month. And I have a link here to the Atlantic article, but we'll just stay right here and look at what they had to say about this article. So the author of the piece in The Atlantic, his name is Joshua Coleman. He described an epidemic that's not COVID, but that's also afflicting America. He called this epidemic family estrangement. All right? That's, in other words, there's families are basically breaking up, falling apart. Family members are not getting along. There's a break in their relationship. Let's continue with this article. As a psychologist who specializes in family therapy, Joshua Coleman, the one who wrote the piece for The Atlantic, he, as a psychologist who specializes in family therapy, Joshua Coleman reports that his practice is flooded with older parents mourning the loss of contact with their grown children, and with grown children angry and hurt by conflict with parents. So he's like, something is going on. My practice here as a psychologist is being flooded with these families they're mourning the loss of their relationship. Parents are mourning the loss of contact with their grown children, and the grown children are mourning and upset and angry by conflict with their parents. So why is there this? What's going on? Why is there this division? Why is there seeming to be all of these problems? Now, you could just say, well, our country right now is so divided. We're divided over politics. We're divided over COVID. We're divided over everything. And this divisiveness has now come into the family. And now the members of the family are not having anything to do with one another. Okay? Look, I think there's a deeper problem. I think they're just identifying the pandemic as, basically families falling apart. I think, no, there's a deeper problem. I think there's a deeper problem. I'm just using this article to get us to where I want us to go. All right. Let's see what they have to say here. The article continues, and I think they're quoting from the piece in The Atlantic, and I quote, "The rules of family life have changed." Now, I say something has happened with the rules and how families govern themselves. The rules have changed. Okay, let's see what rules have changed. The more recent changes in family structures and dynamics he described have only added to the pressure already felt by earlier stressors. For example, the Industrial Revolution, which moved work from inside the home to out, completely upended family life in all kinds of ways. The more recent forces of family estrangement, on the other hand, don't come as much from the outside as from the inside. So he says we've got another massive change happening in family life. We had the Industrial Revolution, which moved work from inside the home to out, completely upended family life in all kinds of ways. Right? No question about that. If you are a parent, you know how that works, right? I know that I spent, when my children were young, where was I 8, 9, 10 hours a day? I was at work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then a large portion of that in the military, I worked all kinds of crazy schedules. Sometimes I was working from 6 o'clock at night to 6 in the morning. Sometimes I was working a really crazy schedule of I went to work at midnight and I got off work at noon. You talk about crazy. Sometimes I would work 2 days on and then 3 days off and all this weird, I never knew when I was working. And so I was gone. And that upends family life. We all know that has occurred. Well, there's something else that is happening. There's a new change that is occurring that is upending family life once again in a major way. And he says this time the problem is not from outside. In other words, this problem is not coming from an outside force or an outside change, but it's coming from inside, the family. It's coming from inside the home. What changed? What is occurring? Is it inside the home? Listen to me. Or is it inside the individual? Let's see what they have to say here. Coleman quotes the director of research at the Council on Contemporary Families to clarify this point. So now the author of the piece in the Atlantic that's now being quoted in the news article that I'm reading, well, he quotes from someone else. So there's a lot of quoting of different sources here. But in this particular case, he relies on the director of research at the Council on Contemporary Families. So here's someone who researches contemporary families, and this is what they have to say, all right? The shift, all right, here we go. Here's the quote. Never before have family relationships been seen as so interwoven with the search for personal growth. Stop right there. I want you to hear that. Now, you may not think there's anything to that, but I want you to hear it. All right, listen carefully. All right, got to really put your thinking caps on here. Never before have family relationships been so interwoven with the search for personal growth, the pursuit of happiness, and the need to confront and overcome psychological obstacles. So something has changed in the family dynamic, and now family relationships have become interwoven for an individual's search for personal growth, for the pursuit of personal happiness, for the personal need to confront and overcome psychological obstacles. Let me put it this way. Never before, and this is me, this is not none of the authors of this. Never before have family relationships been so interwoven with each individual focused on themselves. Family now is about you. Family now is about your personal happiness, your personal desire to confront and overcome psychological obstacles, your personal desire for comfort, for peace, for security, for contentment, for happiness. In other words, family relationship now is seen as about serving you, not about just family. Now, you can agree or disagree. That's okay. Let's continue. Let's continue to see where they go with this. The person they're quoting, who's the researcher for contemporary families, says this shift is bigger than we might suspect. There's been a major shift that has occurred. They go on to explain. Well, listen carefully. For most of history, family relationships were based on mutual obligations rather than on mutual understanding. Listen carefully. For most of history, family relations were based on mutual obligations. In other words, you're a family, so everyone in the family has mutual obligations. That's kind of how family was structured and understood throughout history, according to these people who study families. But something has changed. Now it's based on mutual understanding. Okay, that sounds good, but what does that mean? They continue. Parents or children might reproach the other for failing to honor and acknowledge their duty. In other words, there was a time that a parent or a child might reproach someone else for failing to honor and acknowledge their duty. Hey, if you don't honor, respect, and do your duty, well, now that's a negative thing. Bad on you for not honoring and doing and showing honor, respect, and fulfilling your obligation. There is a reproach. You are the bad one because you did not fulfill your obligation. But this idea that a relative could be faulted for failing to honor, acknowledge one's identity would have been incomprehensible. Now that's changed. Now you can be faulted for failing to acknowledge or honor one's identity. See, we've moved away from obligation to identity. We've moved away from not obligation, but to understanding. So now the situation is, if we're in a family, forget everyone's obligation. Now it's about understanding. Now it's about, think about it. Now it's about what you do for me. If you understand, because I need a place where I can be understood. I need a place where I can be accepted. I have these emotional needs about me. It's not about my obligation to you. It's about what you can give me. There's been a shift. Let's continue. In other words, and I'm quoting from the article, in other words, we used to understand our families in light of our duties to them. Now we are increasingly understanding our families in light of their duty to us. What's more, we increasingly think that their primary duty is to make us happy. Now we see family that your primary duty is to make me happy. Your primary duty is to do stuff for me. No longer do people see family as in regards to my obligation to them, but it's their obligation to me. All right. Again, let me read it again. And in other words, we used to understand our families in light of our duties to them, but now we increasingly understand our families in light of their duty to us. We increasingly think that their primary duty is to make us happy. They're there to make me happy. Just stay with me. Stay with me. Now, you can start asking yourself, have you seen this change in your family, your extended family? Have you seen this dynamic take place in your family? Have you witnessed it? Have you seen it inside yourself? Now, here, this is, to me, this is always so fascinating. A change comes within culture. It's a change in the way people think. It's a change in the way people feel. It's a change in the way people perceive things. And the change happens slowly. And once it happens, rarely does anyone stop to even realize, they don't even recognize, they don't even really see that a change has taken place. And sometimes it takes those who are studying something to go, hey, I don't know if you realize this, your whole understanding of family has shifted. Your whole understanding of family has shifted and you didn't even catch on. You didn't even realize it. Do you feel that have you witnessed this? Have you seen this? I'm going to read the paragraph again because I think it's very powerful. All right, here we go. In other words, we used to understand our families in light of our duties to them. Now we increasingly understand our families in light of their duty to us. What's more, we increasingly think that their primary duty is to make us happy. Let me continue. Haven't we seen this same sort of approach play out in other areas of our lives? My spouse and my marriage should make me happy. If not, divorce is the only answer, no matter how it impacts the children. We've seen that. Hey, I'm not happy in my marriage. Well, I don't care how. Now, what we usually do is convince ourselves, well, it will be better for the children. Now, you convince yourself because all you care about is yourself. You don't care about how it impacts your children. Ultimately, you don't. You say you do, but ultimately you don't. You care about your happiness. Therefore, you do what you want. We've seen that play out in divorce. Listen to this one. My church should make me happy and agree with all of my opinions. If not, I'll find another one, maybe online. Oh, trust me, I'm a pastor. I've seen that every time. I can be 100% dogmatic on this. I can be 100% dogmatic on this. And I wish every church member would learn to understand this. This is how it works. You stand behind the pulpit, you preach on Sunday. You preach, man, maybe it's a sermon where you feel like you have to offer a harsh rebuke, you're blunt. Maybe you have to address a controversial topic. Maybe you have to address a heresy that you think a teacher that people in your church love. You have to confront it, and you confront it. Yeah, maybe you didn't say things completely the correct way. Maybe you said things in a more blunt or forceful way, but you say it, and then you go home, and then you wait. And then Monday morning, the phone rings. Now, no, typically what they do is they call Sunday night. Okay, they usually call Sunday. Hey, tomorrow can we meet? Yeah, is everything okay? Yeah, sure, everything's fine. That's usually a straight up lie. Okay, that's a straight up lie. So then you hang up. So now it's your Sunday night and you're a pastor and you're like, oh no, what's getting ready to happen? Because no one calls you to meet unless there's a problem. They never call to meet to say, hey, I just want to encourage you. Hey, I want to know how you're doing. Hey, what can I do to help you? Now, I have had church members do that. Let me make it clear. I've had some who have met with me just to ask me how I'm doing and what can they do to better serve the church. I have had people do that, and trust me, those are the greatest feelings in the world. But 98% of the time, when you get that call and they want to meet, trust me, they don't care about how you're doing. They don't care about what you're struggling with, have you been discouraged? How are you doing financially? What can I do to help you? No. They're calling because they're not happy. And guess what you're going to get? You're going to get to that meeting and they're going to be like, okay, I just want you to know I don't like this. Basically, they're going to tell you, I don't like your preaching. I don't like this. I don't like the church is doing this. I don't like this and I don't like this. And it's usually, if it's not explicitly stated, it's usually implied pretty strongly. If you don't change it, we're leaving. And I always ask, but what if I do things the way you want, what about the rest of the people in the church? What if they don't want your change? Well, they don't care. Then they never have an answer. And when you say, so you're telling me I've got to do it your way. Oh, no, I'm not telling you that. Well, obviously you are, because I'm not at my house. I'm now here with you to do what you want. I've seen some of the craziest things in the world when it comes to people like that. They're not happy. It's about what they want. So church is there to please them. Church is there to make them happy. And if you don't go along with their opinion, you don't go along with their way, they're going to find another church. They're going to leave you. They don't care how it hurts the church. They don't care how it hurts anyone there. They don't care especially if it's a small church, they don't care if that leaves that church with, possibly losing a pastor. They don't care. All they care is about them, because church is about them. Marriage is about them. Life is about them. The same mentality now is crept over into the way people perceive family. It's not about my obligation to family. It's about my family's obligation to me. All right. Let's see where they go with this. And I'm going to read that paragraph one more time. In other words, we used to understand our families in light of our duties to them. Now we increasingly understand our families in light of their duty to us. What's more, we increasingly think that their primary duty is to make us happy. Haven't we seen this same sort of approach play out in some other areas of life? My spouse and my marriage should make me happy. If not, divorce is the only answer, no matter how it impacts the children. My church should make me happy and agree with all of my opinions. And if not, I'll find another one, maybe online. My work should leave me fulfilled. If not, it's my work's fault. The same pop psychology, self-care, find your bliss platitudes are plastered all over social media. Get rid of toxic people in your life who make you feel unhappy. Surround yourself with only positivity. Don't let other people suck the energy out of you. Not only is it good to ditch the people you don't like, social media will give you the impression that it actually makes you brave and strong. Because, hey, it's about you. All of this, of course, is a perfect reversal. It's a perfect inverse of biblical counsel. From Paul in Ephesians 4, be completely humble and gentle, be patient, bearing with one another in love. Paul assumes that living with others requires some bearing with, which probably implies that we require some bearing with as well. Family members make mistakes. Of course, in case of abuse, severing relationships may be necessary and justified. Now, I want to make that very clear. If you're being abused, we're not talking, okay, trust me, someone from an abusive family, if you're being abused, there is a time to walk away. There is a time to move on. There's no question about it. That's just, we can have a whole discussion. I'm not talking about that, all right? I'm talking about normal course of the way life works, all right? Sometimes, however, our family members are simply annoying. Maybe they merely point out where we've gone wrong, and there are times parents warn children off a dangerous path because of their own painful experiences. Too to automatically confuse tough love or even disagreement with being toxic is not only to serve our own pride, it's foolishly to sacrifice an essential relationship. We need the wisdom and care that only comes from those who know us best. We need what Proverbs call the faithful wounds of a friend, Proverbs 27:6. In this fallen world, families will never be perfect, but God designed them to be the first and best safety net we should all have. Over the last several years, the generation gap has clearly widened, especially over three issues: sex, technology, and Trump. Now let's stop right there. The fact that Christians would allow Trump to divide churches and divide them with their family members is an absolute sign of a lack of spiritual maturity, spiritual insight, spiritual wisdom, and absolute ungodly fleshly devotion to politics. That just makes me so. You're going to fight with family members over Trump? You are a Christian. How about worry about the gospel of Jesus Christ and not your stinking political opinions? That's not going to change the world in the first place. That makes me mad. Now, I know sex. I know what the issue is going to be there. Technology, we'll see if they identify that. I know what the sex thing is going to be. Technology, I'm a little interested in. I think I have an idea. But Trump, really? Churches, Christians they're fighting over politics is just the most embarrassing thing that I've ever seen. It just demonstrates a complete lack of spiritual maturity and wisdom. But that's a whole different subject. Let's continue. Over the last year, COVID and mask have been added to that list. Once again, we have Christians arguing and fighting over a mask. Why? Listen to how the mask argument goes. You're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to take away my rights. It's about you. It's about what makes you comfortable. I don't like the mask. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it, so I'm not going to follow it. I'm not going to follow the rules. Get over it. You don't like it. You stay away from me. Selfishness, listen, and I've tried to avoid using the word yet, but it's a preoccupation with self. You don't care about your obligation to anyone. Everyone else everything is about your happiness. Everything is about you. You. That's all I've seen Christians, this whole pandemic and COVID and mask, and about churches. It's about my rights, our rights, what we want. No one's going to tell us what to do. We're going to do it. Now we all disguise this utter preoccupation with self, and we disguise it in the most spiritual term. Oh no, we're doing it for God. No one's gonna impact my worship of God. Yeah, you're gonna make it sound like it's about God, but it's really about you just not wanting to be told what to do, and you doing something that is discomfort. You don't like it, and it's uncomfortable to you. If you don't see that, then you have been so deceived by this pandemic that's crept into the world. All right. It says, so we can add, it says, over the last year, COVID and mask have been added to that list. All of these issues matter, of course, and there aren't two sides to all of them, but the relationship splits in our families, not to mention our churches and friendships, are often not born out of wisdom and certainly not out of biblical instruction for how we treat our families, but out of social media, YouTube comment section, a YouTube comment section sort of mentality. That's how we kind of handle things now. Like we're on social media posting one of our little snarky comments. We don't do that as Christians. And a lot of times the emails I get from people, it's the emails that like they want to communicate. They communicate like it's a YouTube comment section. They just throw anything at you and don't want to have a meaningful conversation. The family is a sacred design that was gifted to us by God. We ought not squander it. We have a duty to serve it. If we do, it will be another way for Christians to be countercultural, another way for us to live for something bigger than ourselves and our own happiness. That's very simple. Are you living for something other than yourself? Are you living for something bigger than yourself? Are you living for something other than your own happiness? Now, I can take all of this. They have a link to the They have a link to an article from The Atlantic. The name of the article in The Atlantic, if you want to look it up, is "A Shift in American Family Values is Fueling Estrangement." All right? The families are becoming, estranged from one another. There's something that's gone completely wrong. All right, now, here's what I want to say. The pandemic that is spreading across the country is a pandemic of selfishness. People look at everything in light of what it will do for them. Now, listen, I know this is going to be controversial. I think in many cases, not in every case, but in many cases, a lot of people who hop all over social media and they're going to post things about, it could be racism, it could be about Me Too, it could be about whatever. Maybe there's something inside them that they have good motives, but I think a lot of it, they do it just to make themselves look good. Because you can get on social media and you're there posting about all of this stuff. You're not really changing any minds. Usually you're just preaching to the choir. You're not really changing anything. You're not doing anything. You're sitting on your couch. You're sitting on your couch with a bag of Doritos and a Dr. Pepper going, "Oh, we've got to stop the bad evil in the world." Okay, yeah, I posted it. It's more about your own ego, your own pride. It gives you a sense of purpose, gives you a sense of accomplishment, but you're not lifting your finger to actually do anything. You're not sacrificing anything. You're not doing anything. I think even some of that is simply about self. It's about what makes you feel good, what gives you purpose, what makes you feel good. But I think we have an epidemic of selfishness that has crept not only into family life, into all life. And I think what Christians have demonstrated so much through COVID is that we are more worried about us. We're more worried about ourselves. We're more worried about our rights. We're not worried about other people. We're not worried about other people dying. In fact, we will go so far as to deny it and say it's a hoax. Well, no, people aren't dying. Well, maybe they're dying, but it's not that serious. It's not that serious. Of course it's not that serious, because it's not your family or loved one who's dying. Because that's the epitome of selfishness. You only care about yourself. And literally, Christians would do this. If that church asked me to wear a mask, I'm not going. You're not going to go to church because you're asked to wear a mask? Or this is selfishness. No, in this church, we're not going to require a mask. And if you don't like it, then too bad on you. Like, you can reverse it either way. We've got to get to this mentality where we stop thinking about ourselves. Look, it's very simple. It's very straightforward. And I don't know how I know how we lost this. We lost this because we are allowing culture to influence us more than Scripture. But this is one of those situations. I don't have to go searching for Scripture. I don't have to go, I wonder, how can we find a Scripture that could apply to this? This one is the most straightforward. We all know it. I don't know how many times I've quoted this verse during the COVID-19 situation. I've quoted this so many times. Here we go. Philippians chapter 2, verse 1. If there be therefore any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any bowels and mercies, fulfill ye my joy, that you be like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Now, that can't always work, obviously, in a family where you have people who are not Christians and you got people from all different perspectives, all right? But as Christians, we are to be like-minded. We should have the same love. We should be of one accord and of one mind. Let nothing, this is how the church should operate. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than themselves. Now, we can demonstrate that lowliness of mind. We can demonstrate this idea of doing nothing through strife or vainglory. In other words, we don't do it for our own glory. And that in the lowliness of mind, we esteem others better than ourselves. We can apply that way of living to every area we find ourselves. Family, work. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Your mentality should be, how can I serve others, not how can they serve me? How can you serve other people? Not how they can serve you. Now, they named 3 areas where families are being divided. They are 3 areas where it seems to be widening. They named sex. That deals a lot with the changing views of sexuality that's currently in our culture. LGBTQ, homosexuality. The younger generation is adopting a whole new view of morality, a whole new view of sexuality that's going to go against traditional Christian view. Let me make this very clear. Please hear me out. Please hear me out. And I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback on this, but I don't care. When you have a child or a loved one or a family member who adopts a view of sexual morality that goes completely against yours, right? That goes completely against yours. Make sure you understand this. That child doesn't need to just change. In most cases, what that child needs is not for them to adopt your view of sexual morality. In most cases, what they need is salvation. So why are you arguing with them over LGBTQ stuff? Why? You can argue all day. You're arguing from you're saying that these things are wrong based off of biblical morality. Well, if they reject the Bible and reject God, then why would they agree with your morality? You can't get them to agree with your morality until they surrender and submit and believe in your God. If they don't believe in your God, arguing with them about LGBTQ stuff is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. You can argue. What do you hope to get? Well, this LGBT, no, I'm not going to call them by the desired pronoun because I'm going to make a point. Okay, well, you go make your point, but changing their mind about LGBTQ is not what you need. They need salvation. Then guess what? Their views will begin to change. That's the way it's supposed to work. So don't allow, sometimes we fight over issues without realizing what's our goal. Is our goal to convince them of our view of morality? No. They can have my same view of morality and still die and go to hell. You want to maintain relationship, right? And figure out when to fight, when to talk, when not to talk. But the main thing you want to do is say that you can model, hopefully, Christianity, model humility, model love, model not doing anything through strife and vainglory, modeling that you're putting others before yourself, showing love, showing mercy, and doing everything you can when you can to present the gospel of Jesus Christ when the opportunity arises. Winning an argument over LGBTQ issues, I don't understand why Christians think that we always want to go out there and fight with the world. Oh, you want me to do this, and you want me to see this. I'm not going to. What do you hope to accomplish by fighting with them? Well, I want them to see reality. Well, guess what? They can never they can never see reality as it is until they see the ultimate source of reality, which is God. They can never understand reality as it truly is until they see God, until they come to an understanding. God is the first truth that then gives us a correct understanding of all the other truths. God is the source of everything. If you don't get God right, you get everything else wrong. Even if you try to argue with them to get other things right, they can never truly get it right until they see God. Let me state it this way. Until we see God as he truly is, we cannot see anything else as it truly is. Right? We have to see God correctly first. Our view of God determines our view of everything else. A wrong view of God, a wrong view of everything else. So go to the ultimate thing, and fight over technology. Now, I don't know what that fight could be. It could be that we don't like the way they use technology. They seem to, their whole life has to be posted on social media. I think many of parents are just as connected to it and as addicted to it as well. But again, do you want them to just have your view of technology? Again, the Christian worldview is I'm not here to have everyone agree with my opinions and my perspectives. What I hope is that they can come to faith in Jesus Christ. So let me ask you, how do you view everything? Do you view everything and how it makes you feel, how it makes you happy? Is it always about you? Now, let me make it very clear. If you're in a family where it's abusive and crazy, look, there's times you got to wash your hands and walk away. There's times you have to do that. You have to. Sometimes you can spend years trying to reconcile, and all it's just you. Sometimes you got to walk away, and that's a whole different subject. But I'm saying this major mentality of selfishness has infiltrated every aspect of life: family life, work life, church life, and everybody thinks the world is there for them, and people are only there for what they can give you. It's always about their obligation to you, what they can give me, what the church can do for me, what you 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 can do for me. And that is devastating and destructive to not only to family life, church life, and every other form, every other relationship, every other area of life. We've got to get back to a Philippians 2 mindset. And then what does Paul go on to do there? He gives us Christ as the example. Being in the form of God. Thought it not to be robbery, to be equal with God. And what did he do? He laid aside everything to serve others. To serve others. To lay everything aside so that he could, not his deity, but to lay everything aside so that he could die for us. He had to lay down his life. He had to die for us as a sacrifice. Or there was going to be no salvation. There's no forgiveness without the shedding of blood. And the eternal Son of God had to lay down the life he took in the incarnation, lay that aside so that we could experience salvation. That's the example of Christianity. That's what Christianity gives us. That's what Christianity preaches. And then we take that example and no, it's about us. But if you think about it, the American church has even made God is about us. God is here to serve me. God, it's not about me living to glorify God. It's about God living to please me. We've even turned that story around. Selfishness is a pandemic. It's a pandemic that we have to address. It's a pandemic that we must repent of. It's a pandemic that we need to look in the mirror and really ask ourselves some tough questions. You can email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. All right, thanks for listening to this special Sunday afternoon. I guess it's not really special. Thank you for listening to another Sunday afternoon live broadcast, where every Sunday we try to do as many hours of live broadcasting that we possibly can. So I hope you have benefited from this, and hopefully you can use this for discussions with yourself, your family, people in your church, whatever. And hopefully you can share this and it can benefit someone else. All right, everyone have a great day. God bless.